Welcome back for another book review. Today, this is a book that has been a long time in the making for my patrons, but here we are. Finally, I was supposed to have this done at Samhain, and here we are in January. It's fine. Close enough. Outer Temple of Witchcraft by Christopher Penczak. The brief description of this book is that it is a continuation of his other book in the Temple series, which is Inner Temple of Witchcraft. This is a continuation of that book. They kind of build on each other. Technically, you could skip the first book because there is some repeats if you do that. I don't recommend that you do that though. You should do book 1 and then book 2. This book is a training book meant to last for a year and a day, again, for the second degree in his magical system. I think he calls his like the mystery school or something like that. I call it the temple because that's what all of the books are. It's inner temple, outer temple, shamanic temple. It's all temple. So do keep that in mind. If you go to his website, I think he calls it something else, but he actually teaches this material in person, and I think he actually has a few people that teach this material at this point, but I don't live anywhere near where they're offered, so I've just been doing it on my own, which is the point of these books, is that you can do it on your own, at your own pace. You just don't have the community behind it. It's really the solitary experience. This book really focuses on the element of earth in his training system. Each book is related to an element. The first book, Inner Temple, is for fire. This one is for earth. And this one is all about learning about the elements, casting a circle, gathering your tools, and a whole lot more. If you couldn't already guess, my rating for this book is going to be a 5 out of 5. This is a fantastic book. I absolutely love this entire series. That may sound a little contradictory because it took me so long to get through Inner Temple, and then this one didn't take as long, but I still went a little above my timeline. I was supposed to have this done at Samhain, and here we are at the new year, but it's fine. It's better than a couple years to get through it. And really, when you actually finish these books and you do all of the exercises and all of the things, you feel so accomplished because it is such a major task to do. This is not to say that you shouldn't do it, and really, I feel like out of all of the training books out there, this is the book because he talks about so many things in depth. There is just a lot that is really well handled. That I read a lot of books, and these are still my top tier of the recommended books. Thank you to the hubby. He's the one who nagged me to do these books for years, and I'm finally doing it and being like, oh, maybe he was right. Because really, they are the absolute best for actually learning how to be a witch all on your own. Again, you can pay for it, but I feel like some of the things, I think he only does the first year online, and not everyone is going to be able to travel to New Hampshire all the time. I think it might be in a couple other states, but definitely not here in Utah. Now, this book in particular for me felt a little bit redundant because I've done these things a bunch of times. This year is going to be 15 years of being a witch. So obviously, I know how to cast a circle. I know the elements. I have my tools. So a lot of this stuff is it would have been a lot more helpful when I was first beginning and needing to do all of those steps instead of just stumbling around on my own. Because he writes in such a way that is so helpful, and I truly wish I would have had this back in the day. It existed, I didn't know that it existed. So that was my bad. Because theoretically, I could have technically found this when I would go to Barnes & Noble and look for witchy books, but there's so many options that you never really know, which is the good books. So I'm hoping if you are a new witch, this encourages you to do this book, do this series. I wish I would have done something like this. Actually, I could have done this because both of these were definitely out well before I was a witch. I think they came out 5 or 6 years at least before I jumped into witchcraft. So easily could have been a thing, just didn't line up for the universe, but hopefully, if you're watching this and you're new, you should totally get this book. Which, in a way, that does kind of lead into the next point, which is the intended audience. Obviously, if you are new to witchcraft, this is a really great resource to go through. I will say this is not like the first book you need to grab. You need to do them in order. It does build upon itself, and while you technically can jump to the second book, I feel like it's better to do the first one, really get your foundation set up the way he intends you to, and then do this one. It's not as exciting. Book 1 is all about being in your head. I hated it. I didn't want to do it for years and finally did it, and it was like, oh, that actually was worth it. Well then. And then same thing for this book, because while I've done a lot of the things, I'm still glad that I actually did it. So really do book 1 and then do this one if you want to have a solid foundation as a witch. Would I buy this book? I already did, and I plan to buy the 20th edition that came out. I just haven't done it yet, but I want to. I bought the CD that goes along with it because these books do have companion CDs. Eventually, he has said that he's wanting to eventually think about doing like downloads of it and being able to just like stream it somewhere, but he hasn't really explored that too much. So right now, we're going old school with CDs, which is fine. I prefer physical media anyways. So I have the CD companion that goes through a lot of the meditations. It guides you through them. And then I have that also for Inner Temple. And I will be buying that for the Shadow Temple. Well, I call it Shadow Temple. It's the Shamanic Temple. But apparently there's a lot of shadow work involved. So I just lovingly call it the Shadow Temple. Also, if you play Zelda, Shadow Temple, obviously. So anyways, definitely I would buy this book. I'm going to have 2 copies of it not very soon. It's on my to be bought list. And for this one, I have so many other notes, but at the same time, not really. Basically, I went through the entire book on Patreon. I talked about my thoughts and experiences as I went through it throughout the last year and a little bit. So if you want to check it out, I go through each lesson. We talk about the general discussion of the chapter and then my experience with each of the exercises and my thoughts on it. And it's really interesting to get to go back and see the journey throughout the year. So I have a lot of thoughts on it, but I've just broken it up into easier chunks over on Patreon, and you just have to hunt back through. It's OTOW all the way through. So we always have recaps and then exercises. And then of course there will also be a full extended discussion for this one, a final chit chat about this book and my experience going through it, because again, it was a year-long process plus a couple months. So it's been a minute with this book, and I am excited to move on to the 3rd book, which I'll do the same thing. I will be talking each month-ish on the, chapter summaries and then the exercises and my experiences with them. So make sure to check out Patreon for that content all of this year. Speaking of Patreon, huge thank you to my patrons for following along for the chaos that has been Outer Temple of Witchcraft for the past year, as well as all of my other content. It means the world to me for all of you over there. Here on the main channel, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I post every single day. I would love to know if you have also gone through Outer Temple of Witchcraft. What was your experience going through it? It is a very big book to go through. These are not easy books. They have a lot of stuff in there. It's gonna take you some time, but I feel like it's very well worth it. So I'd love to know your experiences in the comments down below. Until next time, thank you so much for watching, and blessed be.